Always takes me a minute. Let's see if this shows up. This is a pretty light pencil. This is just for things like character design. If you have ever been interested in designing things for anything from video games to stories, comic books, whatever, this is my personal way of going about it. This is just a generic person. We're not going to get into any super amounts of detail right now. Obviously, this is kind of an average build. I may have to make some changes. The head looks a little bit big. That's why we have erasers. So you can see it's pretty light. Normally what I would do is, if this is the type of character that I wanted, this is a guy. If I wanted to draw a lady, it would actually be pretty similar, just a slightly different shape, a little more rounded. You can see that the hips are a little bit wider. And they're both about the same size. She's just a little bit shorter. Okay, so these are semi-average build. They're not exactly 100%, what do you call it? I hate the term, but normal build or average build. But for these intents and purposes, this is, pardon me, kind of normal or average. Let's see. Okay. From here, you have to think of what type of person, assuming it's a person you want to draw. Like for her, maybe she's in a, I don't know, an elf. Okay, so you would have to think what makes an elf different than every other type of character. And we've already got the fact that she's pretty slim. So a little bit more pointed features. Obviously the ears. And depending on what style, if you do more of a manga or anime style, her ears might be really big, or they may even come out to the sides. It all really depends. you have to consider, one thing that I would consider first is the type of outfit they might have. But what I'm going to do first is kind of give a final design to each of these figures. And that way, instead of wasting a bunch of paper, there's another way to go about it. I mean, you'll still go through a lot of paper, but it won't be the better quality stuff until you're ready to finalize it. And that's going to be a while. If you actually have a client that you're working for, depending on how detailed and how specific they are about what they're looking for, you might make some drawings, you might make 4 drawings, you might do 11 drawings. It all depends on the person. Very rarely do you nail it the first time. So, alright, right here we have the lady done, and for the guy, he's not super huge, so he won't be a, what do you call that? He won't be a barbarian or anything. He will have a pretty square jaw, though. Well, he'll be human. How about that? That's what we'll go with so far. So, pretty average build. He's not going to be super lithe or anything like an elf would be. He's pretty fit, but he's not like massive bodybuilder type. So this guy could be he could be a thief, he could be a ranger, he could be a knight or a paladin. Gosh. Cleric, mage, whole bunch of different things. Okay, now here is the basics, and eventually if you want I can go over how to do pretty simple figures. I mean, essentially these were mostly just a shape for the head and almost like a small cup or glass, and another one but smaller. And that's essentially what it is. It's just that these will change. Like for a dwarf, and when I say dwarf, I'm talking about fantasy. In the fantasy world, I'm not talking about little people. Because that is technically disrespectful. But in the world of fantasy, a dwarf, I draw mine kind of like this, much shorter and stockier. They're kind of like tanks. But anywho, I can cover all that in a different video. And like I was talking about, instead of going through a whole bunch of different paper as far as doing designs, one thing you can do is tracing paper. Because tracing paper is a bit cheaper and you can get out quite a few designs on it. So if this guy's going to be a ranger, I'm actually going to go to... Oh... Yeah, I'll risk it. It's just a quick demonstration. It's nothing super fantastic or anything. I know it's pretty generic, and that's alright for this intent and purpose. Usually they have something to hold on, like a cape or a cloak or whatever. So this would be the hood. And right now this is obviously just an idea. This is nothing set in stone. You could do another design where he's not wearing a cape or cowl or hood or anything like that at all. It all depends. That's what this stage is for. And I'm just going through it real quick. As far as other types of clothes, let's see. May have like what do you call that? Maybe just a little like just a leather armor maybe right here would be a belt. And if you need to, you can always make little notes around here, like that's a leather armor. Whatever. As long as you know what's going on, that's the important thing. This is just a quick sketch anyway. It's most likely going to need another little strap down this way that can hold on to his sword. And we're not worried exactly what the sword looks like right now. We just want to know that that is a sword. All of this will come later. Now obviously the armor is on the outside, so we want to make sure that he has something covering it. So in this case, he's wearing like a little bit longer than a short sleeve. Not to mention that he has his cape. And I'm going to put on some bracers because he also carries, he's got a little strap around here. I'm going to darken that in just a little bit. You can't really see the whole thing here because it's on the outside. And again, I know what this is, so I don't have to go into great detail, but these will be arrows. So this will be the quiver. I don't even know how to spell quiver. That is so crazy. And this would be something I would do if I needed to show it to someone for if they wanted, if they were looking for me to draw something for them, and they like an idea or whatever, I could go forward with it. You know, obviously I would write these words out quite a bit better. It's kind of got maybe a tunic under. Maybe this is actually part of his tunic, the sleeves are. And he's wearing some very loose-fitting pants. After all this is all done, though, after this is all designed, one of the most important things you can do is go back and find a reference. You can go on Pinterest, you can look at cosplay, you can look up medieval costumes if that's the time it takes place in, whatever, but look up reference. It's super important to get the things right. In this stage, I mean, obviously you don't know exactly what you're doing, you're just coming up with ideas. But when it's finalized, definitely get the either go to the library and get out some books or hop online and just look up whatever type of reference photos you need. Because the more realistic it looks, the better it looks. Or at least the more accurate it looks. Unless you're going for something real cartoony, even then you still need to have reference. Because if you don't know how to draw like ramparts or a portcullis, it's not going to look nearly as good. Okay, so this is the little ranger dude right here. And notice I didn't really bother with the arms, but I guess I better throw them in because this character has them. I'm not really worried about those, all the detail in them, but there we go. And for the elf lady, boy, we'll do like a little tiara type thing in her hair. Obviously, this thing is going to look not so great right now, but it's a design, so it's another thing, believe it or not, you might take this little tiara and have to spend time designing just that as well. Do another sheet of just a tiara design. I know it may not sound fun, or you may actually really enjoy it, but that's all part of how it goes. So for the dress, this is kind of an odd shape, but try and think as far as elves go, they're obviously more in tune with nature, so think of more flowy, more, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's not natural, it's non-geometric for one. I can't think of the right word. Yeah, I say non-geometric and I put all these sharp places in here. Organic. That was the word. More organic. More flowy. That type of thing. I suppose I should be talking while I'm doing all of this and saying what I'm doing. I just didn't think to do it or say anything. I obviously gave her really big, fluffy sleeves right here with very long cuffs. And her dress, the lower part of it is actually kind of like, I don't want to say in pieces, but multiple folds of fabric. It's almost like leaves, kind of. Well, this piece starts up here and kind of curves around. This one's here. It actually wraps around her. And this one will come right down here. I know the hands look funny. I'm not worried about the hands. That's not what I'm focusing on right here. And I might make something like the belt gold, maybe. You know, you have to play around with colors. Do I want this to be greens or maybe yellows, or do I want this to be reds and oranges? All that comes into play, and that also comes into this is where copy machines come in handy as well, because then you can take markers, colored pencil, you can scan it in digitally and do obviously digital colors, all sorts of fun stuff that way. But these are two designs, and I'll just, for hair, it's gonna long and flowy. There we go. Nothing spectacular. I'm not really worried about the hair right now. Eventually, we would get to it. If you do this, eventually, let's say this is what they want, then you would do something else, okay? You would want to do like it's called a turnaround or a character sheet. And I'll show you a quick way to go about that. I know that this is kind of see-through right here. Wow, yeah, you can. I don't like that. I'm going to flip it over. And yeah, you can actually see this much clearer now. But yeah, you can use the tracing paper to go over however many times you want. But as far as doing a turnaround, let's see. I'm not exactly 100% concerned with this being measured 100% because this is just an example. But I want the head to be on this line. And you'll see why in a minute. There are a couple different ways you can do this if there's going to be a lot of detail or a little bit of detail. Let's see. we're just going to draw the same shapes that we did before. And I can go over another simple way of doing this. This is just what I'm going to use for right here. I'm making sure that the elbows line up with the bottom of the rib cage right here. And the shoulders will end up at the bottom of the chest, blah, 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 blah. The wrist at the bottom of the crotch, and then there's the hands, the legs. This is really sloppy right here. And don't make the legs like this. Don't have your pelvis and then just like that. No, put a space in there. Yeah. Okay, just some food for thought. Okay. So we have our very, very sloppy, I guess, mannequin, for short of a better term, I guess. Okay, so, and again, not super worried about this being 100% straight across, but okay, so there's where the bottom of the feet are gonna go. And you can see just how perfectly I did that. Note the sarcasm. So, well, that was fantastic. Well, that was even better. Alright, here we have the, well, I'm doing great. Front. Not sure if that shows up very well. And if it's not super, like, extravagantly detailed, we can just do 3. So we'll have the front, we'll have the side, and this is where I know I should be using a ruler, but it's alright. I'll call that good enough for now. Here we're going to do the side view. My goodness, I am breaking my lead left and right. Obviously, the side view requires different shapes. I'm going to bring his arm back and then down. Technically, the leg actually has a nice little, like an S-curve rhythm from the side. Okay, so you got the front, you got the side, and obviously you have to draw the back. which is almost exactly like doing the front. Just a couple little differences. The main difference is the back is wider and goes in front of the arms right there. One thing about the legs, I didn't think about this. The inside of them is actually kind of straight. There's like a little curve, and the outside has two curves on it. So it's like a curve, then a curve, and curve. It's almost like a funny shaped B. So that would be the elbow. You have these couple different interesting muscles, but we're not going to concern ourselves with the muscles right now. We don't need to. Later on we will deal with those, but right now we don't need to worry about them. See, now with this, again, you could take the tracing paper. Wow. I drew this one just a little bit bigger. Like you could see right here, you could do this character from the side and also from the back. And as far as drawing him from the back with a cape, one way you could go about that, there is a couple. You could almost have like a ghost image, almost, if you want to call it that. You could just leave it as a very light outline, like if you drew everything else, like, let's see, and try and pay attention. This stuff is for some people it's a little difficult, and don't feel bad about it because everyone's different. Like, the quiver is over his left shoulder, so try and think that this is his left shoulder, so you're going to have to draw the quiver over here, and I'm using a 0.05, so just draw the quiver over here, and he's also got his belt, he's got the tunic. Obviously this is not all exactly the same as this. I'm not super worried about that right yet. I'm just showing the example of what I meant. And he's got the baggy pants, boots, he's got the bracer on this arm. That's the leather armor. Okay, and when it comes to his cape, and gosh, what the heck is that thing called again? My mind just drew a complete blank. It's not a cowl. Hood. There we go. Instead of using the 0.05, I have a much thinner 0.05, and I could just go over that very lightly. Whoops. And let's see, it goes almost to the top of the boots, just to show that's where the cape is. So it shows that it's there. It's just not super prominent. It shows what else is underneath it, with the exception of the quiver. I mean, that's like right over the top of it. But anywho, that's how that goes. This one could be a little bit different, though. This one you might actually be able to go through and do the whole thing here. It's really weird. I have never drawn a quiver in this angle before. And like I said, these are just roughs. This isn't anything finished. It's just to help get an idea out there. And this is something I would only do when I got the go-ahead, like, this is exactly what I'm looking for, this is what I want, blah, 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 blah. That's just me personally, though. And obviously, I would make my faces look quite a bit better. Because this is pretty hideous here. But again, I'm just trying to do something real quick as an example. I know it's not super clear right now, but like I said, this is just as an example. This is nothing fully realized. It's just a drawing to hopefully give you an idea. And this works for pretty much everything. And you know what? I'll take you through one more thing. If it's nothing super detailed, there's another way you can do this as well. Pardon me, my gosh. Let's see. You're gonna do This is actually a little bit odd for me. I don't often do three-quarter views, but that's what this is gonna be. Definitely gonna need to erase that head because holy cow, that thing looks awful. Okay, so we have, I'm not gonna lie, this is a very, very not so good three-quarter front view. Again, I'm just speeding through this. Okay, so we have a three-quarter front view. It's a little out of proportion. I really should have paid attention to that. Okay, so three-quarter front view. And then all right. I'm sure you figured it out by now. A three-quarter back view. I realize that this is super sloppy, but it's for an example, so I'm not doing anything super pretty. So if you have a very simple design, you could actually just do something like this. This guy's got a little bit bigger build than the last one. If you don't have tracing paper and you don't mind redrawing everything, another thing you can do, it works really well with a kneaded eraser, but it'll work well with any eraser really, is just take it and lightly go over the pencil. obviously it's an eraser. It lightens it up a bit. So you can go through and add details from there. Maybe this guy is a barbarian, so he's gonna have some pretty big muscle, and so you want to add all that stuff in. And barbarians don't usually wear a whole bunch of clothing, so this would be a perfect case for using this style or this technique for design. Can't really tell, but this is all like fur, and these lines here is like almost like rope that he used to tie the boots on. And again, I would take care of all of that detail at a later stage. This is just super generic. So yeah, this way you can just lighten up the pencils. It all depends on how you want to go about doing this. I have so much more to go into, but I think I would have to do quite a few more videos. If anyone is interested in that, just let me know. If not, then don't. So yeah, that's it for now. I hope you guys have a good night. Yeah. Have a good night, folks. Take care and be safe.